Good morning, everybody. Valley Statutory Planning Committee meeting of 22nd of October 2025. This meeting is being live streamed and will be available via the Commission's website or YouTube. Committee members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in their consideration of items before them. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and pay our respects to elders past and present. Apologies and leave of absence. We do have our Deputy Chairperson, Commissioner Heron, on leave today. Otherwise, all members are attending in person today. And members, are there any requests for leave of absence? No. Thank you very much. Any disclosures of interest? I don't have any recorded before me, but an opportunity for any to declare. No. Thank you very much. And any disclosures of representation? Yeah. Thank you. And declaration of due consideration, can members please indicate that they've received and considered the agenda? Thank you very much. And confirmation of the previous minutes of the 11th of September 2025. Members, were there any issues to raise in relation to the minutes? All right, can we have a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes? Thank you very much. Moved by Member Franklin and seconded by Member Councillor Zanino. Any dissent? Thank you very much. And we'll go to deputations and presentations. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone that's present to make a deputation to this Swan Valley Statutory Planning Committee meeting. You will be invited to join the table or promoted to a panellist via Zoom to deliver your deputation this morning. You have been advised of your allocated time, which will be managed by a timer which will appear on the screen and count down that allocated time. If you do have a PowerPoint presentation this morning, this will be displayed on the screen throughout your presentation and you're requested to advise as you wish to advance the slides. Moving to the first deputation on the agenda this morning, which is on item 3.1, which is the development application for extensions to non-conforming use at lot 627 Higham Road, Herne Hill. We're welcoming James Talanasic via Zoom this morning. Good morning, James. If you could see and if you can hear us, can I may ask that you unmute your microphone and turn your video on so you may participate in the meeting this morning.
How's that?
We can hear you now, James. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have video capabilities? It's fine if you don't. We can proceed with audio only.
Yeah, I do, but for some reason this isn't working for me.
No problem. We'll just proceed with audio only. That's no problem. So over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Yeah, it's regarding the place of worship. Yeah, we have no problems with the people at all. They've been wonderful. I think the issue that you have is this was approved about 10 or 12 years ago. A most unusual situation for something like this to be approved on 1 3/4 acres. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Loud and clear.
Right, thank you. It's been approved on a 1 3/4 acre property, which we were surprised at when it was approved initially in 2014. These sorts of developments, churches or places of worship, are normally reserved for 5 or 10 acre properties like the one along Campersick Road, where there's ample potential to block it off from the main roads visually. The other issue is that it was always approved for up to 30 people, and they're not wanting to expand on that, which is fine. But the main issue that we have, and people who don't live in the street wouldn't be aware of it, but when they have their main events, which is quite often throughout the year, they have up to 200 people. And we've never approached them about it. We want to be always been a good neighbour. We've been in the Swan Valley for 3 generations, like Charlie, and so we didn't want to cause problems. We just blocked off the road verges the best we could, so they don't park there. But the last event, just last month, was 250 people, and the cars were parked on both sides of the road verges, past the winery, which is 300 metres from their driveway, down towards the distillery, which is across the road from the winery. Again, the neighbours don't complain. They'd rather just get on with their lives. But now with this application, it's become an issue because you're talking about a new building, 25 metres long, 9 metres high, and the impact is huge visually. And of course, while they don't want to expand on the numbers, it's only natural that they will. So the problem that you have, those voting to approve it or not approve it, is that you're dealing with something that shouldn't have been approved initially, but we have to live with that now. And now they want to expand on this. And there is no way of closing it off, like the visual impact. And of course, there's no way of us controlling the amount of people that they have throughout the year. And it's not just 30 people. That's our main concern. So now it's, I know I'm getting very close to my time being over. As Swan Valley people, we have a responsibility to not just ourselves, but to the region itself. And it's very important that we don't just think about ourselves. We have a winery and we're licensed to have 60 people, so 30 vehicles, and they can all be housed on our property. They did not make allowance for extra parking. They can park in front of their red brick fence, and they can have up to 30 or 40 cars there. But again, they'll be exceeding their numbers of 30 people. They're very lucky to have what they have on a 1 3/4 acre block. There is nowhere, the Swan Valley is protected by the Swan Valley Planning Act, and this would not be allowed today.
James, I might just have to ask you to stop there just because you are running over time. It's Emma Cole, the chair here, but we will go to questions.
Sure.
So, I have a question for you, James, in relation to outside of the events that are happening when they are operating in a more usual fashion, is the parking an issue?
No, there's people parking outside their own verge, outside their red brick fence, which is not a problem for us. We don't have any concerns at all. And they're normally up to about 30, 40 people, sometimes 50. But the main concern is when they have their main events. And those numbers, the frequency is increasing and the number of people is also increasing.
Okay, thank you, James. When we ask questions of the officers, I will ask the officers whether the applicant is receiving any event approval or permits for events outside of their usual practices. Members, any questions from you? Any further questions? Okay, James, thank you. Appreciate your deputation, and we'll take up the points that you raised when we discuss the item.
Okay, thanks very much for your time.
The next deputation this morning is on item 4.1 on the agenda, which is the Swan Valley Planning Scheme number 1, amendment number 6. And we're welcoming Lex Barnett, Eric Denham, Deborah Reid and Ben Zinner.
Go straight to the next slide. So good morning, Madam Chair, and to the members of the committee. Thank you very much. So for starters, I will avoid talking about the concept itself today. You've all read the report, I know that, but I did want to say that have the proponents, Deborah and Ben Zinner, who would be more than happy to answer any questions you might have about due course. But I will say at the outset that the nature of the proposal does sit very comfortably within its mixed environment of entertainment and agricultural uses. And it is going to bring positives to the area, particularly through the significant revegetation on the land. The site is really well placed for its proposed use. It sits alongside a long-running events facility in Caversham House. It does gently touch the Swan River with a short river foreshore, and it's well connected to Westlands Road with 2 direct road connections. It's cleared of virtually all vegetation, but it hasn't been used for productive agriculture for at least the last 20 years. The next slide, please. The additional use that we're proposing is something that doesn't conflict with the objectives, the general objectives of the priority agriculture zone. And so we would see this as a suitable adjunct to the existing priority agriculture, an additional use. Next slide, thanks. Strategically, the proposal is in line with the Swan Valley local planning strategy and its objectives that talk of supporting tourism in rural areas where it complements the rural character, where it respects the primary productivity in the area, but also recognises the important contribution that tourism does make to the local economy. So this is something that can complement the agricultural environment, but also does dovetail nicely with the variety of other tourism experiences in the area more broadly. In terms of public submissions, it is notable that of the 18 community submissions, 7 of those were supportive, 1 was neutral with comments only. So that really marks 45% of all public submissions were neutral or supportive of the proposal. So that's a pretty impressive ratio in any measure. So in just wrapping up, I do hope that the report does reflect that we have effectively and patiently responded to all of the questions and concerns that have been made over time through either the officers or through the public submissions. And we do appreciate the open and collaborative approach that the officers have taken to put a proposal through these robust and we think supportive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Lex. Members, any questions? Lex, can I ask about the history of the site? You say that it hasn't been used for production, agricultural production for the last 20 years. Can you talk us through what has happened in the period in between?
Not much. The last evidence of agriculture, we go back through all the aerial photography over the site was historically planted out with vines. They progressively disappeared into the early 2000s. So by around about 2004, they were gone. There was a little bit of orchard production as well, but that went at the same time in more recent years. And the current proponents have only had control of the land over the last 3 or 4 years. But in more recent time, there has been a small orchard that really only ever sites for private use. The rest of the land has just been under grass and not even irrigated.
Okay. This member Franklin, Mr. Brooks.
Through the chair, thank you for your presentation. It seems quite a substantial proposal. There's quite a lot of landscaping component, I note as well. What are the sort of water license, sort of watering requirements for this kind of landscape component? And also, is this going to be a staged development? Because it's quite, it's extended right over the site. So is it contemplated that it will be done as a staged development?
Ben, would you care to?
So as far as the water goes, so each of the aviaries that you can see on the development will have its own, will catch as much water as we can, because that's part of the idea behind the park, is that it's self-sustaining. So we plan on being able to water, and all of the plants and things in the landscaping will be native to Western Australia, so that they are, by their very nature, water drought tolerant. That's for two reasons: for water use primarily, and also because we will use a lot of them to feed the birds. So a lot of those types of trees and shrubs that we can use to help sustain the birds. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Well, it's a very extensive development, a lot of capital outlay. So I was just wondering, is it going to be a staged development?
It'll be, we will complete the whole project and then
Operate it on that basis.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, just wanting to understand what other approvals, processes and permits will be required as you move forward. Are there some other approvals that are required for the site?
Obviously a DA. There are other licensing requirements which you can.
We already have, which is a regulation 16, which is a license to display native fauna, which we already have because we used to own a bird park in Broome.
Okay.
So yeah, essentially what we did is we closed that. We've still got all the animals in the hope to open back up as another bird park here. So yeah, there's just a regulation 16 license, which is the display license, and we have that.
And as part of owning the types of birds that we have to have a bird license with the
DBCA and DBird.
So we have those licenses to be able to hold those birds anyway. And so as part of that license, there's how to keep your birds and how to look after and manage those birds. That's part of your license.
Lex, I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk to some of the issues that the City of Swan have raised. They've talked about the fact that they say that it's, that tourism users should be incidental, but this is a significant development footprint across the site. And they're still talking about viable, productive agriculture. They have raised the proximity to neighbours, and they would like the animal establishment element to be a advertised use rather than a de-use. And they've talked about wastewater disposal. Would you like to comment?
All of those. We have enough time.
Well, I think that, given I'm sure it will come up through discussion. So if you don't wish to, there's no obligation.
I very much appreciate that. I think the question of incidental usage is really quite an important one. We opted to go for a scheme amendment here and not a use will go straight to the DA because we recognise that we were doing something that's going to be a holistic use of the site, not as an incidental to the predominant. So we then reflect back to the objectives, the broad objectives of the priority agriculture zone. And this is where I think we worked collaboratively with department officers to talk about the best approach to move forward. And this is where an adjunct to the priority agriculture zone was seen as the softest approach because it doesn't take the land away from potential for it to be used for agriculture, productive agriculture. Still zoned for that purpose. This is an additional thing. The reality is it hasn't been used for productive agriculture for years. It is not taking from the current productive agricultural supply. I think that's a really important point to make, and there may be purpose. I cannot answer the question as to why it hasn't been used for productive agriculture, but think the potential for conflict with surrounding uses is an interesting one. I think there's perception of the potential impacts of having a large bundle of birds next to people with either rural lifestyle or with vines, and whether there's a potential impact of attracting birds, potentially attracting other birds, and then impacting on fires. There's no evidence to suggest that. In fact, then to start talking about the reality of that is that there's nothing that's going to attract more birds than it's already there. There are already a substantial number of birds, and guess what attracts them? It's the vines and the fruit. If I perhaps give you a case in point of another bird park being the Capes Raptor Centre in Margaret River, outside of Margaret River. It's alongside the Voyager State Winery. And we have a situation there where the winery is, the owners of the winery are actually in the process of gifting them an extra 2 hectares of land so that they can expand their facility. So I think that's a measure of that growers sitting alongside the park facility.
Just on the wastewater, Lex.
For the wastewater, we started hoping that we would be able to connect to a pressure main system that actually runs through the site, Average House. That logistically became too difficult to manage. So it will be an on-site system. That's all been looked at thoroughly. We've looked at the provision of an ATU. There's land set aside. We don't have it coming up, but there's land set aside in the farmost western corner of the site that we set aside for irrigation. For that purpose. So that's a very comfortable distance away from the river. I think about 350 away from the river, and there's probably a requirement amount of fill to bring up, sure there's proper separation from groundwater. So it's already been, even though we're not at DA stage, those things, and they're the things that I'm talking about that we have actually along the way needed to step back, address it for the answers.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything
No, that was it. You've covered it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any further questions? No? Okay. Thank you for your deputation today.
time?
Thank you. And members, they were our verbal deputations for today, and we have also received a deputation on that same item written, deputation from Marcus Rumpus, which is in the agenda provided. So members, will now move on to dealing with our non-confidential item, which is 3.1, the development application extensions to non-conforming use at lot 627 Higham Road in Herne Hill. And we're joined by Mark Szabo and Alex Chan on this item today to the meeting. Mark and Alex, we've heard the deputation today from the neighbour. Would you like to make any comment in relation to the parking issues raised and the events that are occurring from the neighbour's perspective?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, look, we've been in discussions with the operators of the site, the Buddhist monastery, for well over a year in regards to mainly the design of the building that's been proposed, which has now come through. I think it's probably the 4th design option. We've received no advice or seen any history of complaints or concerns regarding the parking on the site. We did question extensively around the 30 number and, why they need such a large area. And, the response has been that, it's a meditation centre. Space is required. The current building is quite small. It's not particularly grand or drawing of meditative qualities, I think they've told us in any way. They have suggested to us that they do have events throughout the year, but have never told us that they're in the 200 to 250 people attendance numbers. Now, look, the existing approval does limit them to 30. Disappointed to hear that it sounds like it's a lot more than that, which is more than we've been told. But obviously with the no history of parking complaints, and the parking issue would become a compliance and an enforcement issue if that was to take place. But obviously there's never been any action on that because there's no history of complaints from it.
Okay. And just in relation to any expectations around when events are held, what would the process be for the applicant to go through?
We don't, as it sits, they would need a separate approval to do that. If it was to the point where there's traffic issues being generated, they would have to go through the City of Swan to gain a special approval for that.
Okay, right. So we have matters that may need to potentially be investigated outside of this DA process. So flagging that we are dealing with an application that it's just at the current level of 30 patrons. Other questions? Yes, Member Franklin.
With the proposal, there are obviously other structures on site. Some are going to be removed. I noticed that there is another assembly hall actually on site. So has there been, as part of this development application, a kind of comprehensive sort of rationalisation of what is actually occurring on this site? Would this development not provide the opportunity to see how all these different uses are actually occurring on the site? Is there a sort of information on what is in the other assembly area?
The applicants, during our discussions with them, have advised that obviously they call it a monastery. It's a Buddhist monastery, so there are some permanent monks there on the site, and then they tend to use the house in that smaller assembly area for themselves, and the larger centre on occasion. But the larger centre is when members come to the site.
So in actual fact, it's actually a residential building more like than a conventional residential dwelling.
It is. They could call it a monastery.
Right. Okay. My sort of issue with the development is that at the moment we might be setting them up for not conforming with how they're using the site. Although it is a bit hard to appreciate that when it is being provided as part of development. But you would think that it being extended in its footprint to the size that they're contemplating, I think it's about 25 metres, it's about a 400 square metres footprint, would you say, for the building? Plus, it is quite a substantial upgrade of facility, and yet they're not changing the number of patrons. It does present an issue of whether there is an issue of ultimate compliance with this development.
Well, there is a compliance issue, but I think we'd have to treat that separately.
Right. But there doesn't seem to be a frame on operation of the site either, of the times having involved in other applications of a similar nature. There's usually a requirement to actually stipulate what times people are there, just to sort of guide the number of patrons. And also a kind of parking traffic management consideration as well. I was just wondering if that had been discussed with the proponents.
Through you, Madam Chair. Look, no, we haven't gone down that road. I mean, the existing use is approved and the way it operates already has an approval. This application was simply for the replacement of an existing building. I do understand the members' concerns about the size of the building. Unfortunately, our position is that we have to take their application on good faith. Generally, when you would look at a building that was used for public accommodations, you would look at its size. But there's certainly nothing to say that they could have 100 or only 10 people in there and they just like a very large building. So like I say, we have to unfortunately take it on good faith as it stands, and that is the building they want. And they've told us that is along the lines of the larger the building, it provides a better contemplative nature. That's the sort of words they've used to us. So that is the way we've assessed it and looked at it. And apply the 30 limit. And they're providing more car parking in this sort of rejig of the site than they're required under the outbound parking policy.
Commissioner Brooks, do you mind if I just ask a follow-up question to this? So just in the case that we've heard from the neighbour, and if they've started to receive complaints about parking in large-scale events, my understanding would be that the applicant would need to then make a second development application to hold events and to seek higher numbers of patrons where you could set hours and parking arrangements around that.
Madam Chair, yes, look, if we've got a formal complaint, which it certainly sounds like there might be a valid reason for that, then we would have to investigate that. And the first thing we would do is offer the applicant the opportunity to make a development application.
Specifically for events, an event with an event management plan, etc. Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Brooks?
Yeah, I was simply just going to ask if it would be reasonable for us to add a note, or I mean, I don't know if it's a condition or if it would just be a note to advise them that any events proposed on the site to exceed the 30 patrons would require a separate approval, which would include plans for parking, etc., etc. I just wonder whether it'd be worthwhile actually putting that on as a
Add an advice note.
yeah, so that we're actually preempting and prompting that.
Yeah, I think that's a suggestion given the deputation we've heard today. Mark, if you could help us with a form of words, it might just say, advice note to note that should the applicant be seeking to hold events or to exceed 30 visitors, that there is an expectation that a development application be made. Something to that effect. Thank you. All right, any further questions? Let's go ahead.
Based on, what James is in his deputation, we also have heard that he's got his the 16 car bays for 30 people, so that's quite. And we also have heard the neighbours, none of them are making an official complaint over the years because they want to be good neighbours, basically. But we also hear that the applicant have also not adhered to their car parking, and they've got cars even on a base day of 30 or 40 cars. So that, and James being right across the road, that impacts on their business as well. And then that's without the issue of non-conforming events. They're just, celebrations that they have.
Do you have a question? Because I think we're entering into debate.
Basically, is should we be making any conditions, additional conditions? Aren't we just dealing with the 30?
Well, we're not making any, that suggestion is simply to advise the applicant that should they wish to hold events, that would be the subject of a further development application. So it's not inviting them to hold.
Okay, because sometimes there's up to 20 different events through the year.
And I think that's the issue
Celebrations.
that we're not dealing with today, but given that it's been flagged, all the advice note would be doing would be to say to the applicant, if you do intend to hold events, you are required to provide, to seek a further development application. Yes, members of the vote.
Thank you. Through the chair, I've just got a couple of questions, and one's a point of clarification. If you have a look at page 4, it states under zone objectives in assessing the suitability of the retrospective development. And the question is, just to clarify, I may have read it wrong. Is this a retrospective application or is it just a?
No, through you, Madam Chair, that's an error.
That's an error.
For that.
Yeah, the history is a non-conforming use. But they have not constructed the development that they're seeking today.
Okay,
Thanks for picking that up, members.
the other question, just to clarify it in my own mind, is I thought this was a meditation centre. But is it a meditation centre or is it a place of worship or is it both?
Through you, Madam Chair, the existing official approval is for a place of worship, which their form of worship they call meditation.
So it's actually a place of worship.
Yeah, it's not a commercial.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to deal with the item? Okay, so if we can now move to the consideration of the item, I'll call for a mover and seconder, please. Moved by Commissioner Brooks and seconded by Member Franklin. Do you wish to comment?
Just to seek the wording for the amendment. But yes, I mean, I think it's concerning that we're hearing about events, but noting that this is really just an extension to an existing use and it's replacing an existing building that is used for this purpose with a building that is suitable for their needs. I'm happy to support with some around the requirements should they wish to exceed those numbers.
Member Franklin?
Yes, I think with the direction in regards to the holding of festivals that can be addressed. I'm mindful of 30 patron capacity and hope that they will be in compliance with that as part in terms of the development approval. On that basis, I support it.
Thank you. Mark, do you have the wording for the advice note available?
Madam Chair, we'd recommend it as an advice note. We could use the word, should the applicant wish to exceed the existing approved maximum capacity of 30 persons, a separate application will be required.
Thank you.
Or say a special application, or we can mention special events perhaps.
Yeah.
A separate application would be required for special events that may exceed this maximum capacity.
Okay. And sorry, I've started talking about patrons, but just for consistency, the convention talks about visitors. So if we just use visitors. Got that, Sam?
I've got most of that and I'll get the rest off.
Okay, all right. Are you happy with that? Would you like to move that advice note?
Yes.
And Member Franklin, would you like to second that? Thank you. Any discussion on the advice note? Any dissent to the advice note?
Oh, not the advice note, no.
No dissent to the advice note. Thank you. Okay, we're back to substantive. Any comments in relation to the application? All right. Yes, Member Zanino?
Yes, thank you through the chair. Unfortunately, I can't support this. In my opinion, this should be refused. And the prime reason is, as has just been stated, this is a place of worship, and the Swan Valley Planning Act, which was amended in 2020, one of the prime reasons for amending the Planning Act was because there were a copious amount of applications for places of worship within the boundaries of the Swan Valley Planning Act, and it had to be stopped. So when this was amended, the Act was amended in 2020, places of worship became an ex-use. And in my opinion, we should not at this point be approving this. In my opinion, they should be happy that they got approval and that they are there. They can't comply. The block that they're on is very small. They can't provide sufficient parking bays. And you can go there anytime because there's always cars parked out on the verge. And with any application, any applicant should have to supply adequate parking bays on the property, not outside on verges, because it does make it dangerous. So in my opinion, by us or by this committee approving this application, you're basically giving them approval to break or the application. They're not compliant. I mean, it's been proven that they're not compliant, and all we're doing by approving this is saying, well, you can go on being non-compliant. All you have to do is, when you want to be non-compliant, we'll just put in an application and it'll be considered. I think that a firm, message should be sent to the broader community, because a lot of people out there are looking at this. And I know for a fact, because I'm a City of Swan councillor, I represent the ward, and I am constantly getting phone calls when there's functions or facilities happening in the Swan Valley where you've got parking on road verges, creating dangerous situations, and this is no different. I think that it would be amiss of this board or this committee to approve this, and I think that it should be refused.
Thank you, Member Zanino. If I can speak to the item, look, this place of worship has non-conforming land use rights. This use existed prior to the Act, and with non-conforming land use rights comes the ability to do further works. It doesn't prohibit a applicant from seeking to do further works under a non-conforming land use. So we are not acting against the Act. We are acting in accordance with planning law in allowing a non-conforming use to continue and allowing a landowner with a non-conforming land use to undertake works. That doesn't mean that they have whatever works they seek, but we assess the works on the basis of whether there's merit and whether it's appropriate, and that is what this application is before us today for our assessment of that. But it is not available to us to prohibit a place of worship in this location because they have those non-conforming land use rights. I think the other thing we've heard today from Mark is that we haven't got a record of complaints, and that we haven't therefore been able to act on any compliance related issues. We've heard the deputation today, which has raised those issues, and the advice note is effectively putting the applicant on notice that if they wish to have more than 30 visitors, then it is incumbent upon them to seek approval for that, which would then be assessed, and the impact on parking, etc., would be part of that. So what we're dealing with today is a replacement of their hall for meditation, and we are not dealing with a request for further visitors. So on that basis, and with its non-conforming land use rights, I will support this application, and I think the advice note addition is helpful in reminding the applicant of their obligations to act in accordance with this development application. Are there any further comments?
Through the chair, could I ask a question?
Yes.
The question is, it states categorically in the recommendation, the capacity of the venue must not exceed 30 visitors.
That's correct.
Okay, so if it exceeds 30 visitors at any point in time, or if there's car parking outside of the venue, then neighbours can put in a complaint, and it will have to be followed immediately by obviously state planning.
As soon as practicable, and it becomes a compliance matter. But we can't make a decision today based on compliance matters. We're making a decision based on the application before us. So I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. Thank you.
My name recorded.
Yes, of course, we always do.
Thank you.
It's a given. All right, so we do have another item to deal with today, but it is a confidential item, given that it is a scheme amendment, which will result in a recommendation to the minister. So if I could please have a mover and seconder that we go behind closed doors. Moved by member Zanino, seconded by member Hurt. Any dissent?